Now, imagine being sold off for marriage on Facebook as a child. That's what happened in South Sudan. The ad stayed up for 15 days before the social media network took it down, and it really flies in the face of Facebook's community standards which are meant to protect you as a user. How could a company with such a responsibility and an even bigger staff contingent miss it for 2 weeks? To talk about this, we have Angela Makonetsa, Head of Regional Influencing and Strategic Communications for Plan International, an NGO that works to prevent child marriage and other human rights abuses around the world. She joins us via Skype from Accra. And William Bird, Director of Media Monitoring Africa, whose focus on media includes safety in the digital space. Warm welcome to both of you, William and Angela. Angela, what was your response when you saw this? Tell us about your experience with this horrific post.
Precisely, we are very horrified by this incident that has happened in South Sudan. And the reason why Plan International is very much concerned, it is because in this day and age, we are shocked that a girl can be auctioned on Facebook, on social network. This is reminiscent of the slave market and just a Pandora's box around a lot of unreported cases of child marriage that continue unabated across the world. And for us, being also shocked that it took 15 days for Facebook to put this advert down. And by that time, the process had long gone. $10,000 had been paid. 5 bidders had come on board. The girl was already gone. She had left the camp where she was herding cattle. So we are quite shocked as a humanitarian organization that this has happened and the government in South Sudan has not taken any action to abet it.
And the fact that people considered it to be okay, that there was clearly not an outrage to have alerted Facebook possibly earlier, says a lot, doesn't it?
It does say a lot, and it speaks to the deeply entrenched harmful social norms that communities and societies across the world, especially in Africa, continue to promote and unquestion. So child marriage, as well as other harmful traditional practices, go unquestioned. They've become normal, and girls continue to be subjugated and to be discriminated by their very people who are supposed to protect them, their communities, their governments, and even their families. Quite shocking.
William, how could this happen?
I don't know. I guess Facebook has to answer that question. But I think it is extraordinary that something like this did get through Facebook systems, because in fairness to the social media platforms, one of the areas that they do take extensive and frequent and usually very rapid action is in the area when you start talking about child abuse and child abuse material. They usually, once that's flagged for them, they get it down within a matter of hours. So for this to have been up for 15 days suggests some kind of systemic failure in their system. It may be a language issue. It may be because it was posted as an advert that went through different systems in their flagging processes. I really don't know. And I guess that's one of the things we have to ask Facebook.
There would be better checks and balances because, as you say, especially when it comes to language, they jump on it pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, if it was flagged, the fact that it was flagged and then it took them that long to act on it, they need to account for that. They need to explain to us why it took that long and what action is going to be taken to ensure that that kind of thing doesn't happen again with regard to advertisements. Because as I understand it, it was placed as an advertisement for this particular awful event. And I think that the second point it raises is this idea that they may say, well, this is considered to be a traditional practice in this country, but not in other countries. And it highlights this very difficult position that all of these global entities find themselves in, which is that they say, well, in South Africa, we may say that you can say anything about LGBTIQ people, for example, but you can't in Uganda.
Yeah.
And what law do they use to say, well, we're going to adhere to this and not to the other law? So it does highlight that as a problem. But clearly, when it comes to trafficking in children, it's fundamentally, profoundly unacceptable.
Angela, do you think there was a case of double standards here? I know that one of the ministers who was spoken to about this said, listen, this is something that's been going on for thousands of years. We don't see anything wrong with it. And nobody was really bidding for the child, so it's okay.
Definitely not okay, because actually Article 15 of the Republic of South Sudan's transitional constitution, it rightfully states that any person of marriageable age has to be over 18. And their Child Act of 2008 states the same. South Sudan is a signatory to the Maputo Protocol, to the Human Rights Framework, as well as the African Union campaign to end child marriages, and a lot of human rights frameworks. So it is totally out of order, and the minister really should understand that they are working outside the promises that they've made to themselves and to the girls in that country. And again, this is double standard, because human rights frameworks rightfully states that any form of violence against girls should be stopped and is not acceptable. So definitely they went out of their way.
I just want to punctuate the point that you're making about how big a problem it is, this child marriage. It takes place in many countries around the world, but they mostly occur in countries of the global south. Let's take a look at those countries with the highest prevalence of child marriages. And if you look there, we just pulled out some numbers for you. I mean, Niger is at the top there with at 76%. You know, Central African Republic, 68%. South Sudan, where this incident happened, at 52%. Mozambique, on our borders, 48%. And Mauritania, I mean, it's nothing to be proud of, at 37%. William, I'm just wondering what sort of, I mean, when you look at the digital law, which applies to news websites, there's sort of some sort of moderating beforehand. Would that be possible?
So what Facebook has done recently is upgrade their standards and their community of practice standards, and they've made them public, so at least we know on what things people are being judged against. But clearly, you know, they need to be looking at those figures and taking them into consideration, saying the likelihood of people discussing this kind of thing on Facebook, given its prevalence in these countries, is likely to be higher. Therefore, we need to allocate more resources to making sure that we track and monitor that. And the moment we see it, we stamp it out and we report it to the relevant authorities. They do that all over Europe with child sexual abuse material and other things. They should be doing it all over our continent.
Because it's horrific, isn't it? You know, Facebook being international, that somebody in South Africa could be doing the bidding as well.
I mean anyone could be doing it, but I'm not sure that the actual bidding process took place on the social media platform. But again, if there were links to it there, if there were links to that platform there, then the question is not only why did they not take it down, but why did they not immediately involve the various police authorities in the different countries to go and catch whoever was responsible?
Facebook has written this comment. It was sent to us. They, and I quote them, say, any form of human trafficking, whether posts, pages, ads or groups, is not allowed on Facebook. We removed the post and permanently disabled the account belonging to the person who posted this to Facebook. We're always improving the methods we use to identify content that breaks our policies, including doubling our safety and security team to more than 30,000 and investing in technology. I don't know if that makes you feel any better, Angela. I'm just wondering, though, what sort of message the success of this sale gives to those who are interested in children.
And unfortunately, this sets a very bad precedence because, like I said, a lot of other incidences of child marriage are going unabated in South Sudan. Points where boys who have impregnated their girlfriends sell their sisters so that they get cows. Fathers who want to marry second or third wives or fifth wives sell their daughters to get cows. So cows become that very important asset families think should replace girls. However, I think the numbers that Facebook is talking about, and we're glad that Plan International is engaging Facebook, we really don't want them to talk about just numbers. We want the 30,000 people that they are bringing in to moderate the content on their platforms to really understand the language of gender equality. We want them to have a gender lens, and we want them to have gender transformative programs that allows them to understand the dangers that girls face on online platforms. And they should continue to be a traffic that helps to change these entrenched social norms. If we can have terrorism languages being taken out of Facebook in a click of an eye, then we should have gender discriminatory language also being taken away as quickly as it is put up.
Okay, and William, you just wish you could take social media away from those who shouldn't, who don't deserve it. How do you get the balance so that it doesn't become a sort of nanny state?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think that you have to look at making sure that the social media platforms themselves are more open and accountable. You know, the way that we balance media is that their operations are accountable, their codes and their practices are accountable, and if they err, if ENCA errs, we can take them to the BCCSA. And we need to see that there's a similar mechanism where there's an open, transparent, accountable process for that. And I don't see why we shouldn't be having similar processes for social media platforms. The Germans, with their internet law, are moving in that general direction where they're saying, if we see something that's relating to Nazis, for example, and it's up and it isn't taken down within 24 hours, they get a massive euro fine. And the question is, if they can do that for Germany, why can't they be doing it all around the world, and why can't they be doing it for these issues as well?
And hitting the pocket is where it always works, isn't it? William Bird, Angela Machinesa, thank you very much for talking to us. That's our show for tonight. News is next. I'll see you then.